And we're live. So welcome everybody to yet another live interview show with Become a Fearless Father. And today I'm accompanied by Brett Figueroa. I hope I said that right.
You did. You actually did that really well.
There you go. It must be the, living in Spain. It's rubbing off.
No, that's right.
So first, man, before we start, see, I love this stuff, right?
Yeah.
You get somebody on. I was excited already. But then before we even start, having somebody else like Nate saying like, Brett's a beast, that makes me even more excited. So that's really
awesome.
So let's get the show right on the road, right? So Brett, I was checking your story out and I saw immediately like you went from broke to getting 10K paychecks. And I was like, that's exciting story for people to hear and listen. Like, what's the key to making something like that happen? Because most of us were stuck right at a certain point and we're trying to make that next level.
Yes. They've got to take risks. Are you seeing me okay? Am I looking into the right? Because I always get confused on which part of the camera. Am I looking into the camera now?
Yes, you are.
I'm looking at the camera. Okay, great. So one's got to take a risk. And in 1995, I had no job, no money, and no car. I was about 27 years old. I was always taught that when you're poor, hang out with rich people. Because you can't be poor and hang out with other poor people, because then life is just miserable. So you're going to be poor, hang out with rich people. And also, if you're going to be poor, let rich people mentor you. And do whatever you need to do. And so in 1995, when I had no job, no car, no money, I showed up at the doorsteps of Tony Robbins. And I just went to his office one day unannounced. And he happened to be there in the office. He was heading down the hallway, heading into the elevator with some people. And I was all excited. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Tony Robbins. And I was like a little kid, And I stuck my hand out. I said, hey, Tony, I'm Brett Figueroa. I've been watching your stuff for years. And I said, you're amazing, transformed my life. And I jumped into the elevator, walked him out to his car, and the rest was history. So I started in 1995 at $7.50 an hour at his company, in the boiler room of his company. And so I had to take a risk that bigger and greater opportunities could be ahead of me. And that if I was willing to step up and take a risk, and if I played full out along the way and I was coachable and I let people mentor me, because clearly I was at the bottom. When you have no money, you have no job, and you have no car, and you're 27 years old and you're massively in debt, you've got a problem. So, I recognize I need to get help, and I need to be coachable. I need to get a mentor. I need to get all that kind of stuff. And it was really important. And so I started his company, and I struggled really, really hard. And they kept wanting to fire me. So if you know any more about my story, not only did they not hire me right away, but when they did hire me, they just kept wanting to fire me constantly. They're like, this guy's like, he's like not good. He's like super not good. Just get rid of him. And so finally for me, there was a day that turned it around. There was a day that turned it around, and that was December 15th, 1996. Wow. And I was being called into my sales management office. And when I walked in, there was a piece of paper on the desk, and it was yellow or pink. And for those that know corporate, it's pink means you're fired. Here's your walking papers. And so she was expecting for me to come into the office and sign those papers and be on my merry way. And so I sat there that morning, and I recognized I had one or two choices. I either step up or step aside. I either just declare defeat. This business isn't for me. This industry's not for me. I'm way in over my head. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Go back to safety. They're right. You don't know what's up. Or step up and say, this is for me. This is my calling. This is my destiny. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I did. I stood up. I took my 6'5" body and I scared the shit out of her. I just went, wham! I hovered it right over her desk. I looked her right in the eyes and I said, you can't fire me. I said, you can't fire me. I said, I will not leave. And I got really intense. I said, I'll break all records. I'll do whatever it takes. And I said, I will become your all-time best player. And I got really intense. And she looked at me like, oh my God. But she gave me that one last shot. She gave me that one last shot. And about 30 minutes later, I went to Tony Robbins' house, knocked on his door. He answered the door, and he couldn't believe it because I wasn't supposed to be at his Christmas party. I was supposed to be fired. So he recognized that if this guy could get through one of my top executives, then he can get through the average person on the street. And so they gave me that one shot. And ultimately, I started to take my income up to $2,000 a check and $4,000 a check and $5,000 a check. And it was exciting. It was more money than I'd ever made. And I started to get $7,000 a check. And I ultimately got to where I was making $10,000 on a check. And I said to myself, I wonder what would happen if I took the Ferrari out of the neighborhood. Like, I wonder what I can really do with this thing. Because in the neighborhood, you got to kind of drive pretty slow. Take it out to the desert, forget about it. Throw it down. Take some risks, get a couple tickets.
Yep.
It's all okay. You got a Ferrari, it's good. And so I did, and I learned what I needed to learn. I began to master what I needed to begin to master. I began to tighten up my disciplines, tighten up my habits, tighten up my behaviors. I began to take the things that I knew that I should do, and I began to do them and the action. And the wild part about it is I went from making $10,000 on one check to over $100,000 on the very next check, like a wham, just an immediate 10 to 100. And you probably have seen the video of Tony Robbins on stage, bringing me on stage, telling my story. That was at his company, by the way. He had called me in to come to his company and speak to his company after I had left his company, wanted me to share my story.
Wow.
So I think that, how does somebody do that is they've got to be willing to leave the comfort that they're in to take big risks. Because before I went to go on the road where I had no money, no car, no job, and go to work with Tony Robbins, I was moving out of a mansion in Encino, California. Big glass walls, swimming pools, overlooking all of Los Angeles, an amazing Mecca home, amazing. Remember, I said if you're poor, hang out with rich people.
Yep.
And so I hung out with rich people. So it was leaving this rich life, going 3 hours away with no car, no money, nothing other than $7.50 an hour. And to go make that $7.50 an hour, I was going to have to be, because then I moved in with my rich friend in San Diego when I went to work with Tony. He would literally drop me off out of his limousine into the bus stop in downtown San Diego. I'd take the bus to Tony's office. I'd work all day for $7.50 an hour, get back on the bus, take the bus back downtown. I'd get off the bus and get into a train. The train would then take me inland to a cab, and then the cab would take me home.
Wow.
on a belief that I could do something, but I had to leave my comfort.
Exactly. I love it. I absolutely love it. So let me ask you this then, before we go into a little bit more about other parts of your life. You went from nothing to 10K. What's then the drive? Because a lot of people, what you were talking about, the comfort zone, right? A lot of people then get into a comfort zone, like, oh, I'm making 10K, I got it good, and they slow down. It seems, and from what I've heard from you and seen from you, you've never slowed down. What is it that you do to make sure that you don't slow down, but just keep going and keep going and keep going?
So I wrote a book, and I'm looking for, I wrote a book recently for the network marketing industry. Can you see that?
The Hungry.
It's the Hungry Network Marketer. And the hungry people always continue on.
Exactly.
Continue on. And people have asked Tony Robbins many times in business interviews, Tony, what's the number one thing? What's the number one, not 2, 3, 4. No, it's the number one characteristic of all successful people, business people, entertainment people, athletes. What's the number one characteristic of all successful people that continue on when they literally could just take off and go away forever?
Yep.
Millions in the bank, good to go, but they keep pushing. It always comes down to the one word of hunger.
Mm-hmm.
Always. People ask Jim Carrey out in Hollywood, what keeps him driving, what keeps him going? He's just hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Hungry to be the best, hungry to step into new roles, new characters, hungry to take their economics to new level. They're hungry to whatever that is to dive deeper into the subject.
Exactly. So how do you create that hunger?
Hunger is, I like to look at the definition of hunger as placing ourselves in a position that demands that we perform.
Mm-hmm.
So again, placing ourselves in a position that demands that we perform.
Mm.
So it's us placing us in that position that demands that we perform. So most people wait for life to place them into situations.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Once life places me there, then I'll find my way out. But hungry people are always putting themselves into the next situation, the next declaration, right? Where the declaration just about something that they're up to. So the rest of the world holds them to that accountability. Now they don't need to make that declaration, but they make the declaration because they're starved and they know that everybody will be on top of them to fulfill the declaration.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I love it. Thanks, thanks, Brett. I said I have one question, and then we go into like who's Brett. I think I asked you 3-4 questions, and then, well, we'll get to that now. Go ahead, man. Drink a little bit of water. It's the season of everybody having exactly like me, getting colds. So, Brett, share a little bit about you and what I would like to share a little bit about in regards to now you got your own company. I'd like to hear a little bit about that. Share that with our fellow entrepreneur dads, but also what's the family setup, right? Married, kids, all that stuff. So we know the whole.
So I got a divorce about, we were separated about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 3 beautiful children. Was married for 19 years.
Wow.
And so long time. And but I'm in raising my children. See, I grew up in a nightmare environment. Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Like people only know my story from Tony Robbins forward.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the hell before that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know. They're like, oh, he got into the motivational business for money. Yeah. No, I got into the motivational business because I was a mess.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Just don't know what happened between here and there. You know, you don't know that stuff. And I lived a horrifying childhood. Horrifying. Mm-hmm. And so in order for me to get out from underneath that, I was going to have to do a lot of work. But in raising kids for me, that was the most important thing. So by nature, I'm a speaker. So as a speaker now, I've been doing this work for 25 years. I've spoke to over 3,000 companies. I moved 25 times in 5 years. As you know, Tony Robbins, #1 income earner, all-time record breaker, cool, fun stuff. But the most important thing that I'm most proud of is my children. Mm-hmm. That's the thing I'm most proud of. Because when I was 19 years old, I boarded a Greyhound bus with 50 borrowed dollars. And because I was hanging around a bunch of misfits and none of the colleges invited me to come over. Mm-hmm. So since they didn't invite, it either got lost in the mail, their paperwork, or they just didn't invite me. I'm thinking I just wasn't invited. So I had nowhere to go. And so I was hanging out with a bunch of misfit friends. I knew that if I kept hanging out with these misfit friends, I was going to probably die. You know, I'd probably end up some total loser. Mm-hmm. Living in some broken down city I couldn't stand. And I was like, you know what, I'm out of here, man. I borrowed $50 from a friend of mine. And I got on a Greyhound bus downtown Sacramento and I headed out of town. Mm-hmm. I went to go take my life on. And so I didn't go to college and nobody before me went to college. Mm-hmm. So in the generations before me, nobody went to college. It wasn't important. Mm. You become an entrepreneur, you find your way around, you make some different choices, whatever it is. And so you make different choices. And so for me, I wasn't going to give my kids the same blueprint that my generations before me gave me for education. That was not going to happen. I got really committed to that. And so as a speaker, you're on the road all the time. Well, when I got off the road from Robbins and I began to raise my children, all of my neighbors thought that I was retired. They're like, he's either retired or he has been fired or he's just a loser because he never leaves. Because I was there for everything for my kids, everything. I didn't want to be labeled as that speaker that's always in another airport. You're always in another city. You're always in delayed flights. You know, you're always in some other mess of a mess somewhere other than at your kid's practice. And so I made sure that I was at every single kid's practice. I was at every single kid, all their everything. And so because of that, and because of my wife and I's impact with that, our oldest son is now 21. He graduated high school with a 4.5 degree. He got a $250,000 scholarship to go to school anywhere. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And my middle son is a big 6'9", handsome basketball player, great three-pointer.
Nice.
But he graduated last year with a 4.3. Again, a full ride scholarship to one of the top business schools in the country. And so for me, I can say success fulfilled. And I got a beautiful 13-year-old that's just my angel and my princess. But my two kids that are now deployed off to school, as a dad, I couldn't be happier. So when I look at the success of, oh, I made some money along the way, or, oh, I created some credentials along the way, or, oh, I got to, go to Tony's, be with Tony Robbins, all that's cool. But my greatest pleasure is that the trajectory of my generations ahead of me will no longer be my past.
Exactly.
Happier.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I cry almost every time I talk about it. So this was one time I made it through. I do. I get very emotional about it. They're my kids.
No, absolutely. And I can definitely understand. So let me ask you this then, because what I see a lot happening is that, we want that for our kids, right? We're the entrepreneur dads. We want the best for our kids. And then we involve so much in our business to trying to make that money so we can give them all that we think they need, right? And then don't do those most important things that you were just talking about, like going to all their practices, going to all their games, etc. How did you make sure that you created that kind of balance within the home, that you were able to do both? Because you built out a really successful business, and you just mentioned you were at all those events.
You have to understand too, I also sacrificed. I also sacrificed. So I did not, with full declaration, I did not go out and declare to become some rich man financially when I was raising my kids. So it wasn't like, because in order for me to do that, well, it's easier probably to do now because there's so much digital access and so many different ways to digitalize your business. But for so many years, it was, if you want to go make money, you got to get on the road, right? You need to hit the streets. You got to get out. You got to hit the pavement. And so that was something that I did not choose to do. Matter of fact, my neighbor directly across the street, this is how good God is. My neighbor directly across the street from me was the president of National Speakers Association, NSA. I mean, it's weird how God put us both directly across the street from each other. NSA president, Tony Robbins, speaker, bring them both together. But she was always on the road. She lived on the road. It's always gone. And so I did sacrifice that part to take my kids to the bus stop, to take my kid to Cub Scouts so he can become an Eagle Scout, which he ultimately became an Eagle Scout, highest honors, right? And so I did sacrifice. I'm not going to say that I didn't. I'm not going to say I had a boatload of money and I also raised beautiful kids. Now, did we have some money? Sure. Did we have times that were totally dipped? Absolutely. It's just part of, it's part of the game. But for me, a lot of people go, I want to make all this money, be able to, really give my kids what I think is really important, which is money. That is not what's most important.
Mm.
That is not what's most important. I mean, that's important. That's important. That's a piece of importance, but it's not the most important.
Mm-hmm.
I think personally, just being there for that child when they come in the front door at lunchtime is important. To be able to tuck that kid into nighttime is most important. Those things to me, man, I couldn't, man, that was the best thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Money's awesome, but man, raising my kids in that space was just the greatest.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I love it. I love taking them to school, or getting them ready for school, taking them to school, picking them up for school, going to all the activities. It's absolutely, it's the best thing.
All the small things. And then you get to a point in your life where you go, okay, now it's time to go get rich, financially rich.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have beautifully rich kids. I'm a Christian. I got baptized in June, and I go to church all the time, and I do more now probably than ever of my life because I'm so grateful for my life. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm so grateful for that. But I'm so grateful that I could be able to raise a son also, that when he's driving his car at 18 years old and in his rearview mirror, he's got a cross. That's exciting. I'm like, dude, you're 18. A lot of guys have like, you know, some weird thing they bought at some weird shop. You know, and he's got God hanging right there in his. I'm like, oh, you killed me, bro. You're just killing me.
Love it. All right. Yeah. Before we get to the end, which will be in like 5-6 minutes. Let me ask you this, Brett. What will be one of your biggest gold nuggets that you can share with our fellow entrepreneur dads? Doesn't matter what thing. Doesn't business, life, whatever you want.
The one thing I'd say that if you're a parent, and this has been very important to me, that a lot of people start things and they don't finish things. They start and stop a lot of things. A lot of guy goes, yeah, I've been working on a book, you know, for like 5 years. Dude, you should probably go from working on it to getting it done. So one of the things that was really important to me, and is to this day, is very important, is that when I was a kid, my dad sold life insurance. And so as a life insurance salesman for like 30 years, he was going to create a video cassette on VHS back in the day on how to buy the right life insurance. And he was going to sell it for like $19.99, you know, on what are they you know, late night infomercials.
Yep.
And he talked about it pretty much my whole life growing up. This whole video cassette. Never got it done. And so I never wanted to leave my children in the space of start, stop, but rather start, finish. And so I didn't go to college. I don't know how to write. I'm not a writer. Writers probably read my books and go, oh, God. I kid with people about editing, you know, like with my pages, they didn't just underline shit. They just took the whole page, dipped it in red, and said, here, start over. Your stuff's a mess. And so I'm not a writer, but I have written 3 books. And each one, did it take me a long time? I wrote my last one in the middle of my divorce. You know, a lot of people talk about, you know, a lot of people go, yeah, you know, I'm going to write my book, but they don't want to write it during their divorce. They don't want to write it during their bankruptcy. They don't want to write it during the Holocaust of their own personal life. You know, they're willing to write it on a nice sunny day at a picnic bench out by the river. But are they willing to get into the bowels of the basement during the toughest, deepest, darkest nights of their life and pen out things, ideas and strategies? So each one of my books have written 3, but each one was written through rough seasons. But it was important. On my last book, my daughter goes, Daddy, I didn't think you were going to get it done. Because it took a little bit longer, but it got done. That's case in point. I'm just saying as a parent, because I want to leave my kids the legacy, and now I've created these audio products, which are really cool. And I'll close you on this, but I'd been working on this audio product for a while now. And, you know, a little bit here, a little bit there. It's a 21-day audio program. And I had mentioned to my son a while back that I had been working on these. I did not want to have my son call me out. I did not want to have my son say, Dad, are you done with that so-and-so program? And so I just went up. I did it actually 2 weekends in a row, did 2 different programs, and I put in 17 hours over the weekend. I just went in and did the entire 21-day program. Each day's about 20 minutes of full intensity. And I just went, bam, 17 hours, done. I called my son and I sent him these screenshots. I said, you really inspired me. I said, because I knew that because it's been a while now, I knew you were going to probably be coming asking me, Dad, is it done?
Yeah.
Yes, teacher, here's your homework.
Yeah, exactly.
It's done.
Great, man. Thank you so much for sharing. For all the people who are watching this live or on the replay, make sure, here's the link. It's in the comment section. You can click on it. It's actually in the description section as well. Check out Brett Figueroa.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, man. It was my pleasure. Brett, what are the good ways to connect with you, ask you any questions, get you
a couple different ways? Cool. If anybody wants to discuss doing any type of work together, coaching work, training work, I'm a speaker. I've trained 3,000 companies, opened at the Madison Square Garden. You know, speaking is also the #1 fear of all human beings, you know, or at least I should say human beings in general, not all human beings, but human beings in general is the fear of speaking. So for those that go, hey, I'd like to have some coaching speaking, or maybe you're in business and you're looking to bridge the gap from, you know, maybe your lead generation or your ability to close or whatever that is. Anyways, you can go to my website. You can also text me. You can text me at 303-921-3017, 303-921-3017. I'm a really big texter. I love it. It's fast. Yep. You can also instant message me through Facebook. If we're not friends, become friends. You can go to my website, Brett Figueroa International, brettfigueroainternational.com. And yeah, that's probably the best ways.
Fantastic. Love it. Brett, thank you so much for hopping on the show.
Thank you.
I was really looking forward to this. So glad we got.
Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Everybody else, thank you so much. Make sure to hit that heart button if you got any value out of it. And well, if you can't, then I'm confused. But anyway, make sure to take action on what Brett shared with us. Other than that, also make sure that you share this with your friends and family, because I'm sure they can learn from this as well. And I appreciate all of you, and we'll see each other very soon on the next live interview. Take care. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you.